Ma'am, you need to come with us. Now, the aisle was too narrow, the cabin too quiet. Before Angela Moore could fully stand, a firm grip closed around her forearm and yanked her forward. Her shoulder twisted. She cried out as her balance vanished, and she was pulled down the aisle, knees scraping, passengers gasping as they pressed back into their seats. "Please stop," Angela shouted. "You're hurting me." No one did. A uniformed captain moved fast, face set, voice sharp. "She's being detained," she said, loud enough for the whole plane to hear. Remain seated. Angela's wrist bent at an angle that didn't feel human. A flash of white pain shot up her arm. She screamed. Someone near the window covered their mouth. A phone camera came up, shaking. "I didn't do anything," Angela said through tears. "I just asked a question." They dragged her past row after row. The floor felt endless. Her carry-on tipped over, spilling a book and a scarf she'd knitted herself. No one picked them up. At the front galley, they stopped. Angela collapsed against the bulkhead, clutching her wrist. It was already swelling. "Sit her down," someone said. Angela slid to the floor, breath coming in broken pulls. The captain stood over her. "You refused to comply," she said. "You caused a disturbance." "I asked why my seat was changed," Angela whispered. "That's all." The plane was silent now. Every eye on her. Every second stretching. From the floor, Angela noticed something small near her knee, a thin plastic sleeve that had slipped from her purse during struggle. Inside it, a printed boarding pass. Not hers. If you're listening right now, thank you for staying with this moment, because what that small detail means hasn't landed yet. A flight attendant leaned down. "We're calling security," she said. Angela looked at the boarding pass again as the captain turned away and realized they had dragged the wrong person. Security boarded the plane 10 minutes later. Two men in dark uniforms stepped into the aisle, their presence heavy and final. Passengers leaned away as they passed, whispering stopped mid-sentence. Angela was helped to her feet, her right wrist cradled against her chest. It throbbed with every movement. "She's the one," the captain said, pointing. "Refused to comply." Became disruptive. Angela shook her head. "That's not true," she said softly. Her voice sounded far away to her own ears. "I asked why my seat assignment changed after I boarded." "Ma'am," one of the security officers said, calm but firm, "we'll sort this out off the aircraft." They escorted her down the jet bridge. The air felt colder there. Harder. With each step, pain pulsed through her arm. At the bottom, they guided her into a small room near the gate. The door shut behind them with a dull click. "Have a seat," the officer said. Angela lowered herself slowly, biting back a cry as her wrist shifted. It was swelling fast now, skin-tight and warm. An airline supervisor entered, tablet in hand. "Angela Moore," she read. "Seat 14C. You were asked to move to accommodate another passenger." "I never refused," Angela said. "I just asked why." And then she grabbed me. The supervisor glanced up. The captain reported physical resistance. Angela looked down at her purse, still open from the fall. The thin plastic sleeve lay half out. She pulled it free and slid the boarding pass across the table. "This isn't mine," she said. "I found it on the floor after they dragged me." The officer picked it up. "Seat 14C, he read, then frowned. "Different name." The room went quiet. The supervisor leaned in, scanning the pass. "This belongs to Elisa Grant," she said slowly. Angela swallowed. "That's who they moved into my seat." The officer looked up. "So you weren't refusing to move. You were already moved." A pause followed, longer this time. Then the officer said, "We need to verify something." And Angela felt the ground shift again, because for the first time, someone was actually checking. The door opened suddenly. Two airline employees stepped in, speaking over each other. One held a radio close to her mouth. The other stared at Angela's wrist, now visibly swollen and starting to darken. "We need to move her," someone said. "Security's asking questions." Angela's heart jumped. "Move me where?" she asked. "To medical," the officer replied. "Sit tight." They didn't. A uniformed airport police officer entered instead, taller, more rigid. He looked at Angela, then at the boarding pass still on the table. "Ma'am," he said, "I need to know exactly what happened in your own words." Angela took a breath and told it again. Slowly this time. The seat change. The question. The grip on her arm. The drag down the aisle. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just stated facts. The room felt quieter as she spoke. The officer nodded once. And you never refused to leave the plane? No, Angela said. I never even stood up on my own. He turned to the supervisor. You said the passenger was non-compliant. That's what the captain reported, the supervisor said carefully. The officer looked down at the boarding pass again. This shows Ms. Moore was already reassigned, he said, which means she wasn't occupying the seat in question. Silence. Angela's breathing slowed. For the first time since the aisle, she felt something close to steadiness. Someone was finally listening. A medic entered and gently examined her wrist. One look was enough. It's broken, he said. She needs imaging. Angela closed her eyes. As they helped her up, the officer stepped aside to take a call. His voice dropped, but one sentence carried. Then the captain restrained the wrong passenger. If you're wondering what happens when that realization reaches the cockpit, stay with this, because the truth doesn't land quietly. The officer hung up and turned back to Angela. We're going to need a formal statement, he said, from everyone. The moment Angela was wheeled toward the terminal clinic, the plane door reopened. Passengers watched as airport police stepped back onto the aircraft. The captain stood near the front, arms crossed, jaw tight. She didn't look at the rows of faces staring back at her. Captain, an officer said, calm but unmistakably firm, we need to review the incident. I followed procedure, the captain replied. The passenger was disruptive. The officer didn't argue. He held up the boarding pass. This passenger, he said, reading the name, was already moved before the confrontation. A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin. In the clinic, Angela lay back as a nurse carefully stabilized her wrist. The pain was sharp but distant now, replaced by exhaustion. She stared at the ceiling tiles, replaying the captain's hand on her arm. The sudden pull, the sound of her own voice breaking. A hospital tech whispered, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Angela nodded but didn't answer. Down the hall, an administrator spoke in low tones with airport police. Video from multiple passenger phones had already been uploaded. The angle was bad for everyone involved, but especially for the airline. In the cockpit, the captain's confidence cracked. You didn't confirm the passenger identity, the officer said. You acted on assumption. I had to maintain order, she snapped. By physically removing the wrong person, the words hung there. Back in the clinic, a doctor confirmed the fracture. You'll need a cast, he said, and follow-up care. Angela swallowed. Am I under arrest? The doctor paused. No, he said gently. You never were. That sentence landed harder than the pain. Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister. I saw the video. I'm on my way. At the gate, an announcement crackled overhead. Flight 482 is delayed pending investigation. Passengers looked toward the cockpit again. And for the first time, the captain realized the plane wasn't waiting on Angela anymore. It was waiting on her. The captain was escorted off the plane in full view of the passengers. Her face stayed rigid as airport police walked her down the jet bridge. Phones were no longer hidden. People stood. Someone said, "That's her," out loud. The words followed like footsteps. At the clinic, Angela watched the door swing open again. Two officers entered, slower this time. Different posture. One of them held a small recorder. Ms. Moore, he said, you're not being charged with anything. We need to document what happened. Angela nodded. Her arm was wrapped now, immobilized. The cast felt heavy, like proof she hadn't asked for. She answered every question. Where she was seated, what she said, what she didn't say, how the captain grabbed her without warning, how the aisle floor burned her knees, how her wrist snapped when her body twisted. No one interrupted. When she finished, the officer clicked off the recorder. Thank you, he said. That boarding pass you found changed everything. Angela let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. Her sister arrived minutes later and wrapped her gently in a hug, careful of the cast. You didn't deserve this, she whispered. I know, Angela said. Saying it out loud felt strange. Necessary. Down the hall, airline executives had joined the police. They spoke in tight voices, glancing toward the clinic door, toward the videos now spreading faster than they could contain. One executive asked quietly, "Is there any way this stays internal?" An officer shook his head. "No, there's a serious injury." At the end of the corridor, the captain sat alone in a chair, her jacket folded beside her. An officer stood in front of her. "Captain Harris," he said, "we're placing you under administrative detainment, pending further review." She looked up sharply. "Detainment?" "Yes," he replied. "You're not free to leave." The word echoed. Back in the clinic, Angela closed her eyes as the reality settled in. The system that ignored her at first was now turning fast, and it wasn't done yet. Captain Harris stood abruptly when she heard voices rising outside the office. "What do you mean the footage is public?" she demanded. "That's not authorized." An officer answered flatly. "Passengers posted it. It's everywhere." Her face drained as a phone was held up in front of her. The video showed the aisle, the sudden grab. Angela's body pulled forward. The scream was unmistakable. The angle froze on Angela's wrist, bending the wrong way. In the clinic, Angela's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages stacked on the screen. Friends, co-workers, people she hadn't spoken to in years. "I saw the video. Are you okay? That was you?" She turned the phone face down. The noise of it all felt unreal. A nurse adjusted her sling and spoke gently, grounding her back in the room. "You're safe here," she said. Angela nodded, though her chest still felt tight. An airline attorney entered with two executives. They stood near the door, careful not to crowd her. "We're very sorry," one of them said. "This never should have happened." Angela looked at him, but it did. He swallowed. "Yes." They explained next steps. Medical coverage. An internal review. Words that felt practiced. Then the officer returned, expression unreadable. "There's something else," he said. Everyone went quiet. "The boarding records were audited," he continued. The seat change request came from the cockpit, not the gate. The attorney stiffened. "That's not." "It is," the officer said, "and it wasn't logged properly." Angela's heart started to race again. "What does that mean?" "It means," the officer said carefully, "this wasn't just a mistake. It was a decision. If you're wondering why that distinction matters, stay with this because the story just took a different turn." Down the hall, Captain Harris was informed she would remain detained. And for the first time, the question wasn't what went wrong. It was why. The hospital room was quiet except for the slow beep of a monitor. Angela sat upright, her cast propped on a pillow. The shock had faded, replaced by a heavy awareness she couldn't shake. Every few minutes, a new notification lit up her phone. News outlets, social media clips. Her name, spelled correctly and incorrectly, traveling faster than she ever had. An officer knocked softly before entering. He carried a thin folder. "Ms. Moore," he said, "there's been a development." Her stomach tightened. "Okay." He sat across from her. The cockpit audio was reviewed. Angela's breath caught. "And the seat reassignment wasn't about logistics," he said. "Captain Harris mentioned your name before takeoff." Angela frowned. "She didn't know me." "She knew of you," the officer replied. "Your employer was on the passenger manifest. She commented on it." Angela felt the room tilt. "Commented how?" The officer hesitated. "She said you looked like a problem based on prior incidents involving passengers from the same company." Angela stared at him. "So," she decided before I said a word. "Yes." The truth settled hard in her chest. The drag, the pain, the silence from everyone who should have stopped it. None of it was random. Her sister squeezed her uninjured hand. "They made you the problem," she said quietly. The officer nodded. "That's why the investigation changed scope. This is no longer just excessive force." "What is it?" Angela asked. "Targeted removal," he said, "and falsified reporting." Later that evening, a nurse turned on the TV. A press conference filled the screen. Airline logos. Serious faces. A reporter asked, "Is it true the captain has been detained?" A spokesperson answered, "Yes. Pending criminal review." Angela's chest rose and fell slowly. Then her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "This didn't have to get this far. We can make this go away." Angela stared at the screen. Outside her door, an officer was already stepping closer. Because someone had just crossed a line and left proof behind. Morning sunlight spilled through the hospital blinds. Angela sat upright, casted arm resting on the pillow. The pain was dull now, replaced by the weight of everything that had happened. Her phone vibrated again, emails, texts, missed calls. Every alert reminded her the world had seen what the airline tried to hide. A knock on the door announced the arrival of the lead officer. He stepped inside, folder in hand. "Ms. Moore," he said, "your statements, the boarding pass, and the multiple passenger videos have been reviewed." Angela leaned forward, heart pounding. "And—" The officer paused. "They confirm what you said. Captain Harris restrained the wrong passenger. The airline has admitted internal errors, and a formal investigation into the actions of the crew has begun." Angela let out a long, shaky breath. Relief and exhaustion battled inside her. She looked at her cast, a sharp reminder of the ordeal she endured. The officer continued, "You will be fully cleared. No charges. Medical coverage for your injury will be handled by the airline, and your statement will be included in the official record." Angela's sister, sitting nearby, squeezed her hand. "They finally saw the truth," she said softly. "Yes," Angela whispered, though the word didn't feel complete. The truth had been seen, but that didn't erase the hours of pain, the humiliation, or the viral video circulating online. Her phone buzzed one last time. A news alert. Airline captain detained following passenger injury incident. Investigation underway. No names of passengers. No apologies yet. Just acknowledgement. Angela leaned back, eyes closing briefly. One detail, the boarding pass, had changed everything. It had spared her from further legal trouble, but it couldn't undo the moment she was dragged down the aisle. She opened her eyes, determined. Her story was out now. The videos, the boarding pass, her statement, all proof that injustice can be corrected if someone notices. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and share, because stories like Angela's matter, and truth only survives when people speak up.